First of all, is it YEKINDAR or YEKINDAR? Everyone says it differently.
I think it's YEKINDAR.
We don't even, you just call him Merrick.
Yeah, I just call him Merrick. I don't like calling teammates by aliases. It doesn't feel organic.
It doesn't feel right?
Yeah.
Do you like it when people call you Nitro?
No, I don't like it at all.
When you came back from Valorant, all of a sudden you're in this. Did it feel like you were kind of in dropped in a brand new pond? Like, did it feel like the game was vastly different to you?
Yeah, I mean, strategically definitely felt different when I came back. And like when I was playing Valorant, you know, I wasn't thinking about Counter-Strike obviously because I was thinking about a completely different game and the style of the game and stuff is. I paused Counter-Strike for a year and a half, essentially. So when I came back, I was like, dang, I'm gonna have to study a lot and like see what's going on because it seems like every player, like their skill floor like got a lot higher. Everyone's good. Everyone knows basic protocols now, whereas before you could just like default and like do X or Y off the default. But now you can do so many different things to like fake a default, and then there's just so many more mind games nowadays compared to back then. And I think the game is just harder and because of those things. And yeah, that's kind of like the TLDR of coming back. And obviously it's going to take a lot of time to get used to it again. I feel like Cologne was kind of like, for me, like kind of the breaking point. I was like, okay, now I feel like I'm finally back tactically.
You like turned a corner a little bit.
Yeah, so I was like, you know, we needed this result. We got it. It's like, now we can start building upon that and keep going forward. What
about on like an individual level? I know you said it was a big change tactically. Individually, I know a lot of the players, obviously skill has risen, has gotten better across the board, but are like their plays different that people are making because of like the overall strategy change in the game and the meta shift? Or like, do you feel like there's more individuality that teams are bringing to the table?
Yeah, 100%. I think, especially with how people are like anchoring sites now in CT because the M4A1 is so strong now, which innately just makes T-side more, you gotta be more tactically in depth now because the M4 is so good. And like, I remember looking at the charts for CT side and it was like pretty CT side on every map.
Yeah.
I think besides like maybe Inferno nowadays, but Inferno's always been like a 50-50 map because it's just how the map is
that shifted a while ago,
Yeah, so I think Inferno is one of the only maps that's like maybe T-sided nowadays, and like if it's T-sided, it's like 51-49 kind of thing. Yeah.
Do you know, like, have you talked about? I'm assuming you guys have talked with amongst yourselves. Is there a reason why the M4A4 still isn't viable even after kind of the changes?
Yeah, I think it's mainly the price, to be honest.
Okay.
And it only takes like 3 bullets to kill with the M4A1 now.
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong on that, but.
John would know.
Yeah, John would know.
Sure. He's a lifeline.
Yeah, let me call him real quick. So yeah, I think the M4A1 just kills faster. It's silent, so you don't know where you're dying from, obviously. It's really good for tracers through smokes, for spamming. And the fire rate's pretty good as well. It's not like the A4 fire rate, but it's still good enough to warrant it. So like, I don't really know what they could do. They just need to, because like the way Valve thinks sometimes, they're like, oh, like this gun's overpowered, let's completely get rid of it and make everyone use the other one. Yeah. You know, so I think if the M4A4 was the same price as the A1, I think you'd definitely see more people using it nowadays.
More people shifting over?
Yeah.
Okay. What about like with YEKINDAR coming in, what's something like, has he changed the way you've like approached practice in any way? Or have you changed the way that you've approached practice as an in-game leader? And obviously you have Daps in there as well with a new idea as a coach. Like obviously you left like mid-COVID and coming back, I have to imagine like some organizational ways of how you approach philosophical discussions and strategic discussions has changed a bit.
Well, yeah. Well, if you remember, like when I actually swapped to Valorant, I wasn't IGL as well. So like whenever I came back, I was IGL for the last like couple months, but that's like hard to even think about. But when I came back, I had to get into the routine of being an IGL because as second IGL, you're not like constantly thinking. You don't have to say something every round. You know, you just like
chime in when you got a good answer.
Yeah, you chime in when you think you have an idea. Oh, we could do this round because I see a read. And my individuality, like, you know, so like stuff like that. But when I came back, ever since we got Merrick's as well, like we've had like 13, 14-hour days where we stay late till like 2 a.m. trying to basically like redo like every single map. And that way for the next day of practice, we have a lot to talk about. So instead of doing like an hour theory, which is like traditional for most teams, it was 2 hours of theory. And then that would even be like not much. Yeah. Because like
you just had so much to go over in such a short amount of time
basically,
as well.
And trying to get everyone on the team to understand the macro, which has been like probably the hardest part. But I feel like once once everyone on the team understands that macro, then the game is just so much easier. And it's so much easier for me to call a strat. And everyone will understand that. And I feel like, I was actually talking to Maris the other day about it, and we're like, yeah, like back then I feel like Astralis all the players kind of understood that macro part of the game. That's why when you played against them, it just felt like they were always a step ahead. Yeah. Because I'm not 100% sure on this, but it felt like they all understood that macro part of the game. Whereas like Liquid in 2019, we understood it to a basic level, but we also were just really skilled and very efficient with trading and stuff. So, and then very good in clutches. We had very clutch players, so that was nice. And that innately made the game easier. Yeah, it always does. Yeah. Let's touch on Keith a little bit. Tell me honestly, has anything changed with Keith? Like, you have this whole philosophical shift, but I obviously know from being there too, like Keith is one of those guys who can just show up and he's going to be good. Has he, like, what's his position within this team? Has he even had to like really change anything a whole lot? Nah, I don't think he'll ever change. He's always just the same dude. That's perfect. I think he definitely, at least from back then, he feels more into it. Like strategically, he wants to understand like the dynamics of, because you kind of have to with the way we call now. You have to understand the structure, when to make noise, when to not make noise, when your timing is based on like what your teammates are doing. Whereas like when you're defaulting, there was way more individuality for like your extremity players to be like, oh, I can take this timing because like there's kills going on at mid or frags or whatever. Yeah. So now we have a structured way more where he needs to understand the macro part of it. That way he knows like when he needs to stay alive. Because if I call like a round where I call like from freeze time, you know, first time and second time and third time part of the round, he needs to understand that he needs to stay alive because he's a huge part of it. Of like that second and third portion. Exactly. So like it won't just be like 3-on-1 default. Yeah. And Keith gets to do his own thing for like 40 seconds, and then eventually you're like, all right, now Keith, come back. Exactly, yeah. So like, there's way more structure to how we're playing nowadays, and I honestly feel like that's how every team has to be with how hard T-sides are now. I want to go back to, we were talking a little bit earlier about, you know, you as an in-game leader and having to understand all the different roles that are being played to a certain level to be able to really kind of get a good feel for your team. What's been the most fun role that you've had, that you've played? Since you've done the opping, you've done a more supportive thing. Yeah, in your whole career. Probably entry fragging, like at the beginning of when I started playing. When you and Elise are like so the Bash brothers coming in? Yeah, it's so easy and fun. Just like opening up a site and getting 3 kills, it's just like, all right, round's over, good job. Yeah, your focus is just on that like 20 seconds where you have to do something? Yeah, you're just so focused on like this, the round builds up until this specific point, and then if you do good, then you win the round. If you like get like bare minimum like 1 kill and then the trade happens, you still did good. Yeah. So like, that was probably the most fun, but also I enjoyed opting as well. Okay. Especially on Overpass. It's definitely one of my most fun parts of my career, I guess. Okay. Like getting those highlights on stage, like that's like, it's such a good feeling. And especially with the crowd cheering and stuff, it's so sick. Yeah. Did you ever like think in your head at the start of your career that you wanted to eventually be an in-game leader? Was this like a thought in your mind, or, because this was kind of, the in-game leadership thing was kind of thrust on you by necessity at a certain point? No, it was definitely never a thought. Like, whenever I was younger, I wasn't like really trying to become professional at Counter-Strike. I was like, everyone's always like, who's your idol growing up in Counter-Strike? Because like nowadays, I feel like most kids have a player that they look up to in their style. Yeah. I mean, back then I was like, I'm just playing. I'm just plugging and playing for fun. So I never really had that player, but no, I never really had the thought of becoming an IGL because my personality is not a leader outside of the game. Yeah. So naturally, I'm not going to be like, I want to become an IGL. It just like kind of happened when I started studying the game more, and felt like my personality it could do it, but I need to work on it as well. That's kind of interesting too, because when you switched over to Valorant, you were part of like an entire. That had to be a weird experience, because it's almost like you went back in time. Because when Valorant pops off and a new game comes out like that, everyone's trying to be like that first team to establish themselves. Everyone's trying to be the first player that established themselves. Even like commentary, everyone's trying to be the first caster to really establish a brand. So you were in that like kind of gold rush of Valorant where everyone is scrambling to pick up the important pieces. Was that kind of weird, trying to just put together a team sort of from scratch? Yeah, it was pretty interesting. There's a lot of players I've never heard of that just came out of nowhere from different games. Came from Overwatch, came from Fortnite. Exactly. So there's a lot of players where I had to understand their basic like skill set. Yeah. So like,
could you tell a difference between the different players from different games?
Yeah. I mean, mostly in like clutch situations.
Okay.
It's like, cause you play Counter-Strike your whole life, and Valorant's pretty similar when it comes to like clutches, positioning, and stuff. So taking duels, when to take duels. Yeah, you could definitely tell in the beginning of the game. But now, like, I feel like most players are pretty attuned to it. Yeah. And they understand the basic like Counter-Strike fundamentals. But if they were to go to Counter-Strike, I think it'd be a different story.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That'd definitely be a different story. That'd be fun, though. I would love to see that experiment, actually.
That would be funny.
Was there any like lessons you took over from Valorant of like being as part of a team there and putting together a team there that you were able to kind of transfer over to CS, like make it work?
Yeah, not so much like parts of the game, but more like role-based stuff. So for example, in Valorant, I was a lurker and an anchor, which is like two of the roles that I haven't really done much in Counter-Strike. I did more entry frag and opping in IGL and Counter-Strike, and then in Valorant, it was lurker and
the anchor.
An anchor, yeah, so on defense or whatever. So I definitely learned like some basic stuff for anchoring, because I feel like I was a really good anchor in that game actually, and then on this team I'm also an anchor. So it's kind of like my career also on CT sides transitioned a bit, because now I'm not opping, now that we have OC, obviously. So learned that role in that game, applied it to Counter-Strike as best I could, basic fundamentals and stuff. And lurking, I mean, lurking is lurking. Like you need to understand the macro and your timing if you're going to be a lurker in any game, right? Yep. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to take this random timing.
No, you have to understand what's happening on the other side of the map.
Yeah, it's like players think like there's a timing, but like there's no such thing as a timing in a lot of situations. And it's hard to understand that until you get that experience and repetition.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are pretty much two valuable things that I think I learned a bit.
Then like the interval timing for team calling.
Yeah, for attack. And then one thing I really liked about Valorant was learning new maps.
Okay, yeah.
So when I came back, I was like, you guys don't play Ancient. I was like, guys, let's play Ancient. Let's feel something new, you know? And then we started playing Ancient a lot. Everyone was getting the hang of it, and Ultimate became our best map, so that was like something I was really proud of. And yeah, I think I tried to bring that same philosophy of learning a map to Counter-Strike and Ancient, because like they never played it before, so it's pretty cool to apply some of those concepts.
Was it cool getting to play with Hiko again? Former teammate from CS, yeah?
Yeah, it's always cool to kind of like play with someone years later.
Years down the road, see how things have changed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go on that map tangent a little bit. Have you liked the Ancient changes that came out recently? You know, it came a really cool map for you guys, a map you guys like to play, and then they hit you with the changes. Are they nice changes, you think?
I think they're really good changes. I think the map was probably the most CT-sided map in the game with how it was prior to the changes. So I think the changes are pretty good overall. I think, like I said, like those small changes the whole entire philosophy of the map, and specific utility sets need to be used differently. And like we've been scrimming it a lot, and we understand each team as like, because the map isn't, like the meta and the map is different for each team and their vision, right? Like before it was like CT side, it was either you're playing a team that's aggressive on that lane part of the map, like by the doors, or you're playing a team that's really good at playing passive, like C9 for example. And you need on T side, it's a map where you have to understand like how the other team's philosophy that you're playing against. You need to like have two different styles essentially, because they're going to be saving their utility, so you need to have like different ways of baiting it out, or some kind of solution to deal with it. Right. So for me, it's been really cool.
You know, you mentioned you don't really enjoy nukes, so we'll kind of drop that map off. One map I've kind of noticed being a little bit like lack of favor that you actually just mentioned you like too as an opper. Overpass seems to have fallen out of favor. Do you think there's like a particular reason why? It used to be like a map I always felt like was one of the coolest ones in terms of like strategic depth. Yeah. And I feel now it's like it's kind of shifted away from that almost. Like maybe it's just because teams don't like it so much, so it's not being played often. But
Overpass for us has been a map where we put some time into it, but we definitely been putting more time into other maps, because we just felt like with the way the current teams are playing, like it could be a map where it could be like a weaker map for us, and we'd be stronger on the other core maps. So like that was just kind of a team decision that we made. So we neglected it a bit. Yeah. But I feel like now it's like not that bad for us, and I think the way the map has developed, at least since I stopped playing, was like the blue area in the map. Like that's really made it hard for T-side to like progress in their defaults, and I think
with the door being blown open and all the different boosts and everything.
Yeah, so there's just so many different things that you can do nowadays we've been putting more time into it.
It's gotten better.
It's gotten better. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it, basically.
What's your take on the whole, like, just from like a larger scene perspective? I know a lot of conversation is always around new maps coming in, how to like make the rotation efficient, how many new maps to bring in. Like, what's your take on that? Would you like to see new maps come in more often, or would you rather it stay more consistent? You know, what's your take on the whole debate?
I'm always down for new maps.
Okay.
I feel like it really spices things up.
Yeah.
And like, even like bringing back older maps, redoing them. Like I remember they redid Inferno. They took it out for a little bit, and then they redid it, made it nice, and it was like a completely different map. And, like Counter-Strike's been out for like 20 years now.
Yeah.
So like and the maps are pretty much the same. Like Dusty's been around forever. So like, they could do like the smallest changes ever and bring that map back, and it will be a completely different meta map. Or like the meta would be completely different.
What do they need to change on Train to make Liquid play Train?
Train? They need to bring it back first. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't expect anything would get you guys ready to play Train again.
Yeah, I feel like if we were to play it nowadays though, we'd be actually pretty decent on it with how we approach every single map. Because every single map we try to have very similar philosophies, but up to a certain point where it makes sense, because Overpass is a very slow map, right? And then you have like a map like Ancient where it could be fast. A lot of teams could rush A, rush B. Overpass, you can't really rush A.
Yeah.
You can rush B, but like, you know what I mean? Like there's so many different like intricate details on each map, and we try to have like similar calls to similar maps so we can apply this structure to every single map, basically.
Yeah. What was it like? I mean, you had a good stretch in your career back in the day where, you know, back when you were teammates with Hiko, as you referenced earlier, but you also, Simple was on the team as well. I'm assuming, obviously, back then, kind of all of us from the outside, could you tell at the time he was probably going to become the best player to ever touch the game?
Yeah, like when you would watch Simple play, like even back then, it's funny because you might have even heard this like back when you were on coaching Liquid. We were saying like we'd watch like an old VOD just for fun, like for the giggles, and Simple would be like saying some stuff like, "Oh, you should do this and do this and do this," and like it's like he was actually like really accurate with how he thought about the game and like all the macro parts. So it's just funny to kind of go back and like see how he thought back then and applying it to like nowadays. He's actually really smart about the game, even if he doesn't like if you watch him play nowadays, he doesn't have like lineups for like anything. He just like throws his utility like randomly, and it just seems like
probably
really
just
random.
Wants to get rid of it.
Yeah, probably just wants to get rid of it so he can just aim. But I think he actually understands the game really, really well, and he's a very good brain for the game. And obviously, individually, I mean, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, it really does. Let's go into your history a little bit now. Let's kind of teleport back in time. I didn't even really remember this. You were on iBuyPower for a while, Denial earlier, and during this time, as you said, you weren't even trying to be pro. You were just kind of chilling. What was it like taking that step up, like way back when? When was there like a moment when you were like, oh God, this could actually be like a long-term option?
Yeah, so when I was on iBuyPower, I wasn't making salary or anything. I was in college, had to have a part-time job. I was a full-time student, so I had like 12 to 15 hours, and I had like no money. I was broke, and once I got the Denial money and Liquid money, like when I first started it, like salaries weren't like that high because of just how the market was and market value and stuff. And all the big ors were just coming into Counter-Strike because it was new. Counter-Strike Go had just came out like recently, and there was a finally developing scene. So obviously all the organizations are gonna like, oh, that's like a good opportunity for us to get in and, you know, show our sponsors off and all that stuff. So like then the salaries started raising, and I was like, I can actually make like decent money from this, even if it's like barely anything. It was a lot more than I was making at a part-time job as a waiter or like at Target or
whatever you're doing.
Yeah, so I worked all those jobs and
found the escape route.
Yeah, and then obviously it's something I love doing. I love Counter-Strike, I love gaming. So I was like, I'm gonna try this because like college can be here forever. And honestly, at that time I didn't even know what I really wanted to do. So I was like, I could put this on hold, and then Counter-Strike, like I can't put on hold. It's like,
seize the moment.
It's super timing for me.
Right.
And I was young. I was only like 18, just going into college. So like I was a young gun, and I was pretty good. Like everyone thought I was like an up-and-coming player. So I was like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's basically how it happened.
That's sweet. And you've been playing with the Liege pretty much ever since. You've been on Liquid ever since. You haven't even, I mean, outside of the Valorant excursion, you've just been here. That's cool. Is this like, I mean, well, I was going to ask if this is where you want to retire. I guess you can't really say, hey, I want to leave Liquid in 2 years. No.
Most likely.
But it's been, I mean, I was part of Liquid as well. It's a crazy good organization to be part of.
Yeah, I think Liquid's the best, honestly. I haven't been in many, but that's what I've heard from like people who have been in different organizations and stuff.
I mean, when you just hear the stories kind of floating around.
Yeah.
What are we looking for in the next 6 months? I know you're kind of on the verge, I guess just towards the end of 2022. Obviously on a timeline where you're powering up through Pro League and want to like really kind of start hitting your stride at the RMR and heading into the major, and then the year is going to close out. But I mean, is that you guys think by the end of that timeline, is that enough time with nitr0 to be able to actually deliver kind of the level you guys think you should be at?
Yeah, I think the more we practice and play together, our expectations are going to be higher and our goals are going to be higher. And I think for the major, obviously we're not going to be like, yeah, we're going to win the major, you know. But maybe in like 3 weeks after our boot camp, we'll feel that confidence and we'll say, yeah, we're feeling like we can become major finalists or major champions. But right now, I feel like for this tournament, it's we haven't really talked about our goals. We're just kind of playing because we're off a 6-day boot camp, you know, kind of refresh all of our strats. So not too much practice, but like we do feel like we're at a pretty good level and as a team, and we're trying to like focus on match by match, you know, getting there, trying to achieve the Blast Fall final. So yeah. NAF
mentioned in an interview at some point that he felt like nitr0's coming into the team was very similar to like what the old Stewie was coming into the team at 2019, like a new infusion of just like positive energy and attitude, like a little bit more of an environment and emotional addition to the team, a second caller as well. Do you kind of echo that sentiment as well?
Yeah, he definitely reminds me a lot of Stewie. When Stu was on our team, he was like that fiery dude. He always wanted to win. He'd do whatever it took to win, and it really showed. And I think nitr0's the same way. They're both really, like, especially towards the earlier part of having Jake on the team.
Yeah. He
liked to call people out. And traditionally, like, we just weren't those kind of people that would be like, you shouldn't do this and this, just because of our personality. So that's just how it was. So it was nice to have that fire and that open criticism board, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and nowadays, like, we're completely different. Like, we love to criticize each other and have those conversations where we can agree on something. Even if it's like both sides disagree, like, we're going to try our best to agree on something.
Find a middle ground in there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we're a completely different team from how we were back then. And everyone's willing to learn. And even if, like, someone says it in a bad manner or, like, it seems like they're, you know, trying to be, like, mean to you or something, like you got to understand their intentions and like just how people deliver things is different, and you deliver criticism to people differently and like in a way that they'll understand.
It's a really helpful attitude shift to have as well.
Oh yeah.
Super important.
Nice.
Can you feel any kind of similarities between, well actually I don't even know, in 2019 did you even like feel like a build up to the Grand Slam level, or did you guys just show up to an event one day and it was like, oh, everyone's hitting headshots, everyone's clutching everything? Although I guess your first Grand Slam win was like the grimy match in Australia. That was a long final.
Well, if you remember 2018, we were always second place.
Yeah.
So 2019, we're so like long overdue for a tournament, and like we need a win here. And then once we got Stewie on the team, we got
the
IVA Power event. We were finally beat Astralis, and then it was like kind of slow, and then finally we got that win in Australia, and it was like, all right, let's go. We know that's all it takes. And we would always say, like, we only need that one tournament win for our confidence to be, like, so high. Because for 2 years, like, we're so close. We're so close to winning all these tournaments. And Astralis was just there just putting that wall up. Like,
you had the best team in the world against you.
Yeah. I think that was the first event they weren't at or something.
Yeah.
So I was like, Liquid won, but it was like, there's an asterisk because Astralis weren't there.
And you're like, nah, screw you guys, we're taking it.
Yeah, and then, like, I think one of the next tournaments, we actually knocked them out in the quarters. I was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, that was in France, I think.
Yeah, so we're like, all right, this is it. Like, we know how good we can be. We just need to keep this mentality and this confidence going forward, and then we did really good. Is
it that same vibe right now? Is it like, I mean, it feels, I don't know, it feels from the outside, at least, that it's harder to win tournaments right now in this kind of stage of Counter-Strike than perhaps 2019 was. Maybe it's just like a recency thing, but it just feels that way from the outside. Are you looking for that win to give you a surge of confidence, or are you just like, you know what, if we just keep trucking away and doing our thing and working as hard as we are, it's eventually just going to happen?
I think it's eventually going to happen if we keep working as hard, yeah. I think with the amount of time we're putting in, like I have no idea when I say this, but I feel like we're working harder than like all the other teams right now. That's just how it feels. I'm not even sure if that's accurate or not, but it just feels that way, and that's a really good mentality to have. Because once you go into a match, like you have so many different options of what you can do and how you can approach the game that, and then you win, it's like, oh, all of our work like paid off. And like that's like a really good feeling with anything in life, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if we keep working hard and keep like adjusting our map pool and understanding like all the meta stuff, like we're gonna be really good.
When you look at teams like a lot of our conversation today has been like you feeling like you guys have caught up to the meta and you're currently playing and calling in the current style. When you look at like NAVI and FaZe, who are obviously the two top dogs right now, do you feel close? Because like again, from the outside, you know, a lot of the conversation is sort of like here's FaZe and NAVI, and then you got to go like a little bit of a ways down before we start talking about the other teams. Do you feel like closer than probably people expect? I know it's hard to judge that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I understand. I don't know if FaZe is unique in the sense that like they have a lot of set strats, right? And then NAVI has a lot of good like kind of like how we approach the game. Yep. So like a lot of people,
CS mentality.
Yeah, exactly. So they're two completely different styles, and they match pretty well when they play each other, as you can see in the Cologne final. So it's super interesting, and Kerrigan's style versus just the way NAVI approaches the game and how they mid round and approach other situations and stuff. It's really interesting. But I think we're pretty close. I think we just need to make sure we're individually on a high level because those guys are
it goes deep.
They're super confident right now.
It's like 2019 Liquid. It goes like it goes 4 or 5 deep
even,
on the team.
Yeah, even in scrims, I'm like, what am I playing right now? Like they're just so confident.
Yeah, the confidence of winning a major and all that jazz. Just a couple more questions before we get you out of here. I want to get your thoughts on, you know, not so much the current G2, but I guess the previous G2, but more importantly, I guess I want to touch on vitality and kind of all those old Astralis players that went over there. And actually, you know, forget about G2 entirely. Forget I even said that. Let's talk about vitality with the Astralis players that are there and Astralis with the Astralis players that are still there. Like when you watch those guys play, obviously not up to like the level that we've known them for, you know, pre-COVID. What do you think is their biggest issue? Do you think they're suffering from being a little bit out of date the way that Liquid was for a while before you guys brought YEKINDAR in? Do you think it's just a natural individual drop-off? Is it, you know, like when you watch them play, are you just like, wow, this isn't the same players that destroyed us in 2018?
Yeah, it is pretty funny to watch. Like, it's just funny seeing like their team be divided. Not funny, but like interesting.
No, it can be funny too. It is kind of funny.
Yeah, because like they were so good back then, and now they're like playing against each other, and there's got to be like some insane rivalry there. Like
I believe there has to be.
Yeah, so I don't know. I haven't really thought too much in depth about it, but when I play Astralis, like I think I've only played them once, and we beat them to knock them out of the RMR, right, on Ancient, and. That was a game where I whiffed really bad, and then I had 2 clutches after.
The classic game.
That was pretty bad. But yeah,
it's all good. You brought it back in the end.
I'm still recovering. But I don't know. I don't really. It's hard to even say. Like when I watch them play, I think they're still really skilled, and they still make their plays and stuff.
There's just something missing.
Yeah, like Zipnix is like maybe the one who's fallen off the most, according to stats and stuff. But he's still an insane player. He's very smart. He still has like the most clutches or something. So I mean, the history's there. Maybe he just needs to, like, I don't know. Honestly.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint the issues. That's just why I asked. Just if you thought anything, because I know, like, us on the outside, it feels like almost silly on a broadcast sometimes. We're just like, like, we've said so much about these teams, but we can't really pinpoint what feels off.
It's hard. Like, it could be something that we have no idea is going on. Like, it could be in something personal life. Like, maybe they're not putting as many hours in like they used to. Maybe they have too many distractions. Like, I don't know. Yeah. It could be anything, but it's not like I'm like as good as I was back then either. So everyone has their own thing, you know.
Everyone has their own demon they got to overcome.
Yeah, exactly.